Well, I'm out here gonna harvest me some basil. We're supposed to get a thunderstorm later tonight. I hope so because we desperately need the rain. And you can cut these like this, put them together, and hang them. Like if you have a barn, uh, a closed-in area that's protected from rain and stuff, you can hang these and let them dry. It takes a little longer than it would if you put them in a dehydrator, but you can certainly do that. And I'm not cutting every tiny bit of the stem because it will keep producing basil for a while longer. And even after, I dry basil, I can come out here and harvest fresh basil because I'm not going to get every bit of it. I'm just cutting the biggest stem off of it. And like I said, a lot of you may live in an area where you've got barns or airy places that you could hang this to dry, and you don't need to put it in the oven or a dehydrator. And I've still got some on the back porch, and I feel it mist and rain right now. And then I've got this big one over here I'm going to harvest too. That big one right back in there. I mean, just out of a couple of plants, you get all this basil. I can hold it. It smells so good. Got a whole armful of basil. Now, let's take it in the house and get the leaves off of the stems here. It's kind of hard to walk holding a camera. I got little buddy in here this morning. You done eat all your food? You wanting more? Put this camera where I can. I gotta shut the door. Yeah, it's hot enough here in Texas that you could certainly dry it. Dry basil outside. He's wanting more food. How many cans of this stuff are you think you're going to eat today, huh? How many cans of this do you think you're going to eat today? He's waiting patiently for more food over here, so I'm going to try to get him some. And I've got to take one day and just really give my house a good cleaning. All this dryness and dust has got my house a mess. See, there he is down there eating. He'll spend some time eating that. Try to show you what I'm doing. But I got my shelves to go in my dehydrator. And I'm just going to break the leaves off. And it will turn your fingernails dark if you use your fingernails much on it. It's one reason I like to use a scissor. And that's why some people rather hang it to dry so they don't have to cut it off the stem. But that looks like a lot of basil, but it'll dry down to nothing. I think you can see what I'm doing here. Move that back a little. And I'm not washing this because I don't use pesticides or anything like that on this. And it's not been so it's dirty, so I don't really have to. Yeah, unless you cook every meal with basil, you don't really need as many plants as I had. I just ended up with that many from the seeds I planted. So I just made good use of them. I mean, here in Texas, I could probably hang some out on the porch, as long as it wasn't a blowing rain or anything, and dehydrate these. And then all you would have to do is put something under it, crumble them off of the stems, and put them in your jars, and you've got your dried basil. Just cut the leaves off. No, you don't have to worry about the stem. If you leave a little bit of stem on there, it's okay. Temperature's dropped a little. I mean, it's not as hot as it has been. It's still pretty warm out there, though. I've never tried dehydrating it in the oven, but you could put it on probably the lowest setting on your oven and spread it out in pans, like cookie pans or something, and dehydrate it real slow in your oven. And I'm going to put all the stems that I've got over here, I'm going to put all of those in my, my little buddy once I go out. He stands at the door patiently. Yeah, that little bit of rain we got yesterday was nothing. The ground was still dried. But we're supposed to get a thunderstorm sometime tonight. That's a bad looking leaf. I don't want to put those in there. Any of them that look kind of bad, you know, just cut them off. Don't put them in your dehydrator. But one real good healthy plant should be plenty basil if it's just a small family. Unless you use basil for every meal that you cook. And you might say I'm putting them kind of thick, and I am, but it's okay. I got a ton of them down in the hole. And the plants that are left out there that are still growing, they'll put out more leaves until we get our freezes. So don't be afraid to harvest it. Harvest your basil. Leave some of the stems there so they'll produce more basil leaves before the freezes. And you'll still be able to go harvest fresh basil for some of the dishes you want to go ahead and cook. And then later, when your basil is gone, you know, when the bush is completely died off, then you can start using your dehydrated basil. I know it's a kind of a tedious little job cutting the little leaves off, but you don't want the stems. A little bit of the stem on there is okay if it's up close to the leaf, but you really don't want a bunch of stems in there because they don't dehydrate like the leaves do. And you'll just end up with a bunch of hard stems in there. And I mean, it is a little bit of work, not much. I mean, you have to have patience to get it all trimmed up. Cut in your dehydrator. And if you don't want it to get too hot in your house, just set it outside on your porch. Your whole dehydrator, plug it in on your porch. As long as you don't have anything that you think will get to it. Knock it over or anything like that. fairly easy. Might work just as good to do it that way, as long as you don't get a lot of the stems. I'm telling you what, it smells so good. Got leaves down in the hole. And don't be afraid to put it kind of thick, because these leaves are real thin and they'll dehydrate. It doesn't matter. You see, even if you leave the little tip of it like this, that's good. Just lay the whole thing in there. And you especially want all these little leaves. The little leaves are kind of sometimes more fragrant than the bigger ones. One thing about it, if you grow basil and dry it, you'll never have to buy basil again. Unless you just want fresh basil in the wintertime and all you have is dried. You'll have all you need to put in your meals, in your recipes. And I'm putting it in kind of thick because I don't want to run out of space to put all my basil. When I run this dehydrator, I want it to run for a reason, not for just 2 or 3 little leaves laying on each. on each tray. Because I'll guarantee you the air gets through there. And you will be surprised how small amount you got in here when this stuff dries. I mean, if you live in an area where you can grow it all year, you don't have to worry about dehydrating it. I mean, we can't grow it in the wintertime here because it's too cold. It would all freeze. Now, I don't know if you can see my thumbnail, how dark it turned it right there at the edge. That's where I kind of broke the basil with it, and that juice gets on your fingernails and it will turn them black or turn them dark. And I'd rather do it with my hands, but I don't like the way it turns my fingernails. I mean, this is the easiest thing to do. It just takes a little bit of time. Yeah, I've only got 5 trays, so I'm hoping I can get all this basil in these 5 trays. Now the little tips, like this, the very tip of your plant, that's the best ones to make basil tea out of, because they're stronger than the other leaves. That is, if you like basil tea. Some people don't like it. I mean, it's okay. I'm not crazy over it. If you break it with your fingers, just try not to use your fingernail. Because that's what it turns on you, is your fingernail. And if you'll hold it like this and just strip it, it's an easy way to get them off too. You have to have your side limbs off though to do that. And you can't do all of them that way, but a lot of them you can. Hopefully we're going to get a good rain tonight. Like I said, it was kind of just barely mist and just enough that you felt the humidity in the air when I was out there getting this basil a few minutes ago. So hopefully we'll get a good soaking tonight for our yard. We desperately need it here. Now you can dry peppermint this way too, if you like to save your peppermint. Yeah, and these little tops like that, you can just put in there just like that. They're tender enough that they'll dehydrate that whole stem and everything. Like I said, if you don't have a dehydrator, hang it outside somewhere where it's protected from the rain and dry it outside. I might try drying some of this outside, some of the other that's out there, just to see how it'll work here for me. But I have to put it somewhere where it's protected because we're headed into our little bit of a rainy season, as I call it. And you definitely don't want to put it out where it's going to get rained on because it'll just make it mold and get all ooky and everything else. In fact, that's what I'm going to do. I'm just going to try one plant of my basil. I'm going to hang it up under the patio. What I'm afraid of is when it starts to dry, when we have our windy rains here, it's just going to blow it away. But if you got it in a protected spot where the wind can't damage it or blow it, you're better off. And if you don't mind the smell of basil, hang it in your house. I mean, I guess I could hang some in here and try it. I'm going to try to get all this in here, though. No, I might be able to get a little bit more down in there. And I'm going to go out there and I'm going to get another bunch. And I'm just going to hang it and see what happens. See if it'll survive the wind out here. Now I'm going to put that on my dehydrator over here. I'm going to turn it on. And I guess I need to unplug some phones and plug my dehydrator in. I've got my dehydrator set on about 115. Right here. And I'm going to let it stay overnight. Let it stay overnight, and I should be able to take it out tomorrow and just pack it in jars. I mean, you know, it's not going to fill too many jars because it dehydrates down to very little amount. Put some of these other leaves in there. Don't want to waste any of them. I love basil. And with it on that low of heat, it's not going to get real hot in here, hopefully. So I'm going to clean up my mess. And get that taken out to the compost pile. All of those basil stems.